At the class reunion, my wife's first love asked her, "If you could do it all over again, would you marry me instead?" My wife answered firmly, "Yes." The whole room went silent, everyone waiting for my reaction. But to everyone's surprise, I started clapping and said, "It's not too late now, don't miss your chance again." At the year-end class reunion, Stephen asked Jessica, "If you could do it again, would you marry me?" Jessica answered firmly, "Yes." The room fell silent instantly. Other classmates exchanged glances, their eyes alight with gossip. All of them looked at me, waiting for my reaction. Unhurriedly, I took a sip of my drink, as if the woman expressing deep feelings wasn't my wife of 7 years. After finishing my warm drink, I stood up and began to clap. It's not too late to get married now. Don't miss the chance. The room grew even quieter. It seemed like no one could understand why someone would willingly humiliate themselves. Even Jessica shot me a sharp look, her eyes filled with confusion and doubt. She probably thought I was up to something. The class president rushed to defuse the situation. "Stephen and Jessica are just joking, right, Lewis?" But I ignored him and turned to Jessica and our classmates, explaining seriously, "I'm not drunk. I've already decided to divorce Jessica. Stephen, don't miss your chance this time." After saying that, I looked at Stephen with a smirk. "Don't chicken out like you did 7 years ago, saying you're not good enough for Jessica." Jessica's face turned sour, eyebrows tightly knitted, her eyes at me full of questioning and displeasure. "Lewis, are you crazy? I was just joking with Stephen. Why are you so upset?" I was speechless. For 7 years, Jessica treated me like a pushover, and now I'm supposed to be okay with her flirting with her first love? Anyone who wants to deal with this humiliation can take it. It's my own fault for 7 years. My love made me spoil Jessica to the point where she didn't even recognize herself. Yet, Jessica was like a rock that wouldn't warm up. Even after 7 years of my devotion, her heart only had room for Stephen. If I hadn't stumbled upon Jessica's secret, I would probably still be like a fool hanging around her. 3 months ago, I found a post Jessica made online. "We've been married 7 years. We got together because our parents wanted it. Without any spark, our marriage has become bland. I can see the end of this road." I suddenly realized I can't keep living in a daze. A few days ago, my first love returned. I want a divorce, but I've got too many ties with him, both in personal life and in work. What should I do? The post was made a month ago, around when Stephen came back. Turns out, Jessica has been planning her way out for a while. I actually sensed things changing. Jessica was somewhat tender to me initially, but after Stephen showed up, she lost all patience with me, eventually not even wanting to come home, staying out all night. When I saw that post, my hand shook while holding a cigarette. The ashtray overflowed with cigarette butts. The clock ticked like a doomsday countdown. I opened my phone to our chat, the latest message being my inquiry about when she'd be back. She hadn't replied. After sitting there all night, Jessica still didn't come home. She updated her social media with a photo. A pair watching the sunrise with a caption that read, "Glad you're here." Mutual friends assumed the person next to her was me, congratulating her in the comments. Jessica replied personally, "Not him." I felt mocked. Jessica had lost all shame, openly being vague with another man. I zoomed in on the photo, catching the letters on Jessica's wrist under the sunlight. My heart ached. Stephen, I once naively thought these past 7 years were enough for Jessica to forget him. But reality showed I was dead wrong. 7 years only made it harder for Jessica to forget Stephen. They were made for each other. I was just an opportunist. "Daddy, I'm hungry. Where's Mommy?" Bella rubbed her eyes, complaining with her childish voice. "Daddy, you stink. Why are you smoking so much?" Wrinkling her nose at me, she frowned. Seeing Bella, I felt a jolt of energy lift my stiff body. I smiled. "Mommy will be back later. Let Daddy change, and we'll make breakfast." Bella was our daughter, the one I adored for 4 years. Couldn't help but think. After dropping Bella at preschool, hopelessness and reluctance rose in me as I watched her small figure walk away. If Jessica and I split, what would happen to Bella? She's only 4. Maybe Jessica just hasn't seen Stephen in a while and is catching up? After all, we have Bella. Mulling over it, I called Jessica. Her response was cold and impatient. Louis, what's up? Oh, you're checking on me again? Just watched the sunrise with Steven. Why were you so sensitive? My heart bled. All I could do was reluctantly answer, no, I just wanted to see if you were busy. I'm back at the office, heading into a meeting. Bye. Before I could reply, the call ended. Holding my phone, I forced a bitter smile. When did Jessica and I stop being able to exchange even 3 sentences? Will our 7-year marriage end here? But Bella, she can't be without her mom. Realizing this, I decided to win Jessica back. I bought some of her favorite cupcakes and headed to her office. We are married, after all, so it shouldn't matter who takes the first step. I kept telling myself that to find some comfort. But just as I reached the building, I overheard the employees talking. They wondered about the relationship between the new partner and the boss. They said the two looked good together, like a perfect match. But wait, isn't our boss's husband Louis? And isn't that partner named Steven? That name hit me like a punch, making my heart race. Were they really talking about Jessica and Steven? My hand holding the cupcakes trembled, and with a sense of unease, I headed to Jessica's office. The lights were on inside. Just as I was about to push the door open, I heard voices. It was Steven's voice, and the realization stunned me. What was he doing here, and what did he mean by arranging work? Steven, why are we talking about this? Jessica replied, sounding emotional. This company was really set up for you. You have no idea how much I've missed you all these years. Steven then held Jessica tightly in an emotional embrace. I was frozen, unable to move, my mind reeling from what I just witnessed. I don't even remember leaving the office building, just relieved that no one noticed me, giving my dignity a small measure of protection. But that image of Jessica with Steven wouldn't leave my mind. Jessica and I grew up together. Steven, on the other hand, was like the hero swooping in from a romance novel. We all went to high school together, but then I went overseas for college while Jessica and Steven went to the same university. I heard they were the ideal couple that everyone envied. People even bet on their future, with the majority convinced they'd get married right after graduation. But just as they were about to take that step, the differences in family background became a major hurdle. Steven came from an ordinary working-class family, while Jessica's was wealthy and wouldn't accept a son-in-law without money or status. So Steven left. I ended up marrying Jessica through a family arrangement. Yet here Steven was, back with wealth and power, destroying the walls that once stood between him and Jessica. That thought made me feel hopeless, with my heart aching painfully. Maybe our marriage was nearing its end. I drove around aimlessly for a while before finally heading home in frustration. As soon as I reached the door, I could hear laughter inside. Opening the door, I saw Bella playing around in Steven's arms, with Jessica watching in the background, wearing an apron. It was a cozy scene, but all I felt was everything slipping away from me. Anger surged through me. This was my home, my wife, my daughter. Who gave Steven the right to be here? Blinded by rage, I kicked the door open, and in the chaos of Bella's cries, I got into a fight with Steven. In the end, Jessica left with Steven and Bella. Before leaving, Jessica gave me a cold stare. Louis, you better pray that Steven's okay, or I won't let you off. Any lingering hopes I had for Jessica were dashed. Sitting amidst the chaos, I broke down in tears. All my years with Jessica couldn't stand up to the 4 years she had with Steven. It's been 2 weeks since that day, and it's the first time I'm seeing Jessica again. My mind snapped back to reality, standing in the dim light. Jessica looked at me with disgust. I smiled and said I was just stepping out to use the restroom. But as I came out, Jessica and Steven appeared, and Jessica approached me with a scowl. Louis, it was just a joke with Steven. Why can't you take a joke? What's the point of stirring things up like this? I stayed silent, wondering why she was upset. I'm the one playing it her way, letting her have her freedom. Why wasn't she happy? I'm letting you two be together, otherwise an affair would sound terrible, and I don't want to be the fool here. The divorce papers are ready. Bella's coming with me, and you can chase after your true love now. You won't need to vent online about your frustrations anymore. Jessica seemed surprised, either from my serious tone or knowing I'd seen her posts. I'll send you the divorce papers. We can work out the details at the office later. With that, I turned and left. No hesitation. Maybe realizing I was serious, Steven started playing the nice guy. Jessica, maybe you should apologize to Louis. He seems to mean it and you do have a daughter together. But Jessica, still defiant, said, if it weren't for Bella, I'd have divorced him long ago. If he's okay with ending it, all the better. Even though I was prepared for divorce, hearing her cold words still hurt. All these years, I couldn't wake someone pretending to be asleep. My nails dug into my palms, leaving red marks. 7 years spent losing myself, letting Jessica consume my life. From now on, I'm living for me. I went back to the booth again. Everyone's eyes were on me. A love triangle is a juicy topic for gossip. Right after, Jessica came in too with a stern face, following Steven. An odd vibe filled the room. The class monitor ran over and whispered to me, Louis, are you really? I couldn't help but smile. No joke, I've already worked out the assets, it's fair and square, half and half. As for that company, I glanced over at Jessica and Steven. You guys can keep it as a wedding gift. After all, isn't it named after you too? It holds special meaning. Hearing the company's name and seeing Jessica and Steven, the classmates who originally planned to say something just kept quiet. We're high school buddies. Everyone knew about Jessica and me, childhood sweethearts, perfect match. Back then, many thought I'd end up with Jessica. But when I was all set to confess, she was already with Steven. I wished them well, or so I thought, until I realized Steven was unreliable. He let Jessica down. So I came back into her life, took care of her, loved her, and vowed in front of both our families. Jessica became the most important person to me. My pals called me a simp or said I was whipped. I'd laugh it off. Being taken care of by a wife is happiness. How is loving someone being a simp? Now everything's telling me, being a simp does you no favors. When I left the restaurant from the gathering, it was getting dark. A drizzle started when I was about to drive off. Jessica hopped into the car. I purposely glanced outside. Steven was on the steps, staring us down. Aren't you going with him? I asked calmly as if it was nothing. Jessica looked shocked. I didn't drive. Why wouldn't I go with you? I just stayed silent. We drove home in silence. Once home, Jessica started talking as she kicked off her shoes. Louis, I'm gonna rest for a bit. Didn't you say you didn't eat those cherries you bought? Wash some for me, will you? I'll lie down first. Jessica's casual request. I didn't answer, just silently handed her the divorce papers instead. Her eyes went wide. Louis, are you serious? Her voice shot up, like she suddenly realized. You can't just throw a fit without limits, Louis. I hung my head, just felt so tired out of nowhere. Jessica never saw me as important, yet she expected me to love her like it was day one. I'm a person too, you know? I need love too. I turned to her seriously. Jessica, do I really need to throw a fit? You already want to end this and be with Steven, don't you? I'm just agreeing with you, why the fuss now? Jessica froze. After what seemed like ages, she angrily signed the papers and threw them at me. Fine. Whoever doesn't leave is a loser. She grabbed her bag and stormed out. That moment, I felt a rush of relief. I went back to work at LB Group after leaving Jessica. Tired, but strangely fulfilled. No longer troubling over how to please Jessica or feeling down because of her. Maybe leaving her was the right choice. But life never stops stirring the pot. A week of cold shoulder later, Jessica came to see me with Bella. Hearing the secretary say the Mrs. and Miss were there, I was taken aback for a sec. Mrs. and Miss? Seeing Jessica and Bella at the door, I got it. Jessica had brought lunch boxes, smiling at me. I figure news of our divorce reached the Smiths. With parental pressure, Jessica decided to try patching things up. The Smiths haven't been doing well, and marrying with the Booths kept their business alive. As soon as the door opened, Bella rushed to me, hugging me. Dad, I haven't seen you in forever. I really missed you. Before I could reply, Jessica gently set down the boxes. Bella, didn't I tell you Daddy's busy at work? She turned to me. I made some food and brought Bella to share with you. Want to try? Seeing Bella's eager eyes, I nodded. Jessica lit up, opening the boxes and handed me chopsticks. Louis, try it. I burned my hand making this. Looking down, I saw the burn on Jessica's hand from cooking. Normally, I'd rush to take care of it right away. But now, just then, noticing the dishes in the boxes, any guilt or soft feelings I had vanished. There were shrimp, spicy clams, and steamed crab. Fancy looking, but I wasn't in the mood. Jessica noticed me hesitating and asked, "Is something wrong? Don't you like it? The shrimp's fresh." Silently for a while, I finally said, "I'm allergic to seafood." Jessica was taken aback and sheepishly said, "Sorry, Louis, I forgot you were allergic." Her first apology ever. Whenever Jessica and I fought, I was always the one to apologize. Maybe she never learned how. I knew Steven was the seafood fan, but for some reason I felt nothing. Seeing my continued silence, Jessica's mood did a 180. She slammed the chopsticks down. I apologized. "What more do you want?" I sighed, looking directly at Jessica. "For divorce if you want, you don't have to worry. The Booths and the Smiths have known each other for so many years. Getting divorced won't make it awkward for any of us." Jessica instantly lost her temper. She stared blankly for a while before pulling my hand and apologizing. "Louis, I'm begging you, don't do this. Didn't you say you'd love me forever?" My heart felt heavy. "But Jessica, it's you who said you don't love me. Dragging this out is pointless. I'll explain it to our families. They've shared so many years together, they'll understand." Jessica fell silent. When she finally looked up, all she could say was, "I'm sorry." April came around, and the J City Chamber of Commerce's annual gala was on the horizon. Normally, Jessica was my date. But this year, as I pondered who to take, a woman came barreling toward me with a cup of coffee. In no time, the coffee had drenched my entire front, leaving stains all over my crisp white shirt. Damn, it was brand new. I furrowed my brow, ready to say something. The woman across from me kept apologizing, insisting it was an accident. I sighed in resignation. "It's fine, just be careful next time. That coffee's pretty hot." Just as I was about to walk away, the woman burst out laughing, pointing at me. "Louis, you're still the same. So good-natured, letting someone soak you in coffee and just moving on after an apology." I looked back and realized her familiar face. "Don't you recognize me? You've got no conscience, huh?" Her face was the same as I remembered, and I was pleasantly surprised. "You're Kathy. How long have you been back? Funny you ask, are you free tonight?" Kathy shook her head, and I could finally relax, having found my date sorted. When Kathy went to try on a dress, I received a message from Jessica. She was asking what I'd be wearing to the gala so she could match. I quickly replied, letting her know I'd already found a date. Then I turned off my phone without a second glance. At the gala, glasses clinked as J-City's most notable figures mingled, including Jessica's parents. My own parents opted for a vacation since I returned to the LB group. With wealthy families, the idea of a proper match is drilled in, so everyone knew about my marriage to Jessica. But when I walked in with Kathy on my arm, Jessica's face darkened. She lifted her dress up and stomped over. "Louis, who is this woman? Why is she your date?" Jessica was fuming, anger written all over her face. Kathy leaned in, whispering a question to me that only my lips could convey. "Is this your ex-wife?" I nodded. On the way over, I'd shared the story of Jessica and me with Kathy. The next moment, Kathy switched her hold from my arm to my hand. Her voice as sweet as ever. "Louis, who is this woman? Why is she calling for you? She's kind of scary." "I'm scared." Couldn't help but chuckle. Kathy's ability to rile people up was unchanged, even after her time abroad. Jessica got angrier, practically stomping in her high heels. "Louis, who is she? Was this a plan to get back at me? I've always been your wife, how could you bring another woman as your date?" Watching Jessica's upset expression left me speechless. She was once my everything, yet she had been indifferent. Why defend the title of wife now when Steven's gaze almost burned holes into me? With a nod toward Steven's direction, I said, "Jessica, Steven is right over there, why are you looking for me?" Jessica froze, tears beginning to fall. When did Louis become so impatient with her? Jessica opened her mouth to explain but found no words. All she could manage was to weakly clarify, I wasn't. Steven and I just ran into each other, just talked a bit. I laughed. Steven, a guy new to the scene, got an invite to this party that easily? Without Jessica's help, I doubt it. At that moment, Steven appeared beside Jessica, gently taking her drink, speaking affectionately. You got drunk last night. Better not overdo it today. Don't want another lost message mishap. His gaze flickered toward me, and I was struck silent. Jessica bombarded me with texts late last night because she was drinking? Steven's suggestion implied I shouldn't worry, it wasn't meant for me. They were together at the time. Looking up, I caught Steven's challenging stare. This guy's afraid I'm reconsidering the divorce? Before I could respond, Jessica urgently shook off Steven's hold, explaining hastily, Louis, I was really drunk last night, but I meant every word. Can't let you go. I've been thinking since you brought up divorce, and despite what I thought would be happiness, I just felt like I'd lost something. You believe me, don't you? I frowned, feeling disconnected. What's the point of explaining? We're nearly divorced, her actions are hers alone now. The tension between us drew everyone's attention. Ready to clear the air before gossip overwhelmed us all, I ignored Jessica's pleading eyes. To everyone, I plainly stated, yes, we're getting divorced, but the Smiths and the Booths still have a working relationship. So, Jessica's actions have nothing to do with me anymore. Since Jessica didn't want to make the divorce public, let me do it. When I straightforwardly ended things, Jessica's eyes widened, and her expression froze. She stared at me, her eyes filled with confusion and bewilderment. Meanwhile, Steven's eyes were filled with excitement and determination. Took a while before Jessica reacted. She raised her voice sharply. I didn't agree to the divorce. I don't agree. I calmly replied, you've already signed the divorce papers, you signed them yourself. You said you didn't want to be with me anymore, that your first love returned, you want a divorce. Do you want more details? Stop it. Jessica shook her head, biting her lips, hoping to soften my heart. There was a time when her pout would make me drop everything to comfort her. But now I'm exhausted. I'm not going to chase after someone who doesn't love me anymore. As the meaning of my words sank in, and seeing Steven and Jessica practically flaunting their connection, Jessica's parents felt humiliated and dragged her away from the party. Somehow, after saying everything, I felt an incredible sense of relief. Kathy even applauded me, surprised that Louis actually stood up for himself for once. Not bad, not bad. After the party ended, I dropped Kathy off at her place. Under her husband's murderous glare, I went in for a cup of tea. Seeing Jack clinging to Kathy, I couldn't help but laugh and gave them a thumbs up. You two are perfect for each other. I wish you a lifetime of happiness together. She raised her chin proudly. Of course, my husband loves me, and I love him. On my way back, I thought about Kathy and Jack's interactions inside. I figured I might never find another partner. I'm scared. Loving someone is too exhausting. After that day when the party ended, Jessica seemed to have lost it. She called and messaged me constantly, asking what I was doing. I found it irritating. It was ironic because I saw a version of myself in Jessica's relentless behavior. At first, I just blocked her, but then I eventually deleted and blacklisted her, returning to my own life. Jessica refusing the divorce doesn't matter, I've already filed a lawsuit, even if I feel sorry for Bella. So when Bella asked me to take her to the amusement park, I gladly agreed. But when I saw Jessica holding Bella's hand, for a moment, I wanted to turn and walk away. However, Bella's voice stopped me in my tracks. Daddy, I missed you so much. Can you play with me? I forced a smile and caught Bella as she ran to me. What goes around comes around. I once tried using Bella to keep Jessica, but in the end, I trapped myself. To not make Bella upset, I took her to ride the carousel, took photos with Jessica. It was heartwarming, so much so that for a moment, I thought about letting it go, leaving the past behind. But that thought disappeared quickly. I looked at a changed Jessica and warned myself not to repeat the same mistakes. However, When I returned from buying ice cream, I saw a scene that shocked me. Stephen was viciously pulling Bella. His face flushed as he yelled at her. "I told you, Louis is not your father, your real dad is me. Call me Stephen." Jessica tried to shield Bella from Stephen's rude actions. "Why are you saying this to the child? She's too young to understand." "Understand what?" "Understand that I want to take you back, both of you are mine. Why stay with Louis? He's divorcing you, can't you see me instead?" The sun was blazing. The ice cream melted in my hand, sticky. I stood frozen, unable to move. Every word from Stephen felt like a demon from hell dragging me into a pit. "Wait, what? Bella isn't my daughter?" The next second, Stephen noticed me standing not far away, and his eyes were filled with taunt and malice. Jessica followed Stephen's gaze and saw me. Her face changed rapidly, settling into panic. "Louis, let me explain. I don't know why Stephen is here. I haven't been in contact with him. Really, believe me." "Whose child is Bella?" My voice was hoarse. Hearing my voice, Jessica froze like a marble statue. I clutched her shoulders hard. "Tell me, Jessica. Tell me Bella is my child. Say it quick." But Jessica's silence confirmed everything. Stephen swaggered over with a smug grin and wrapped Jessica in his arms, throwing a paternity test at me. "Thank you, Louis, for raising my daughter so well." Suddenly, anger surged in me, and I lunged at Stephen, exchanging blows, fist to flesh. "Bella is my child. She's mine." Bella saw this and started hitting Stephen, yelling, "You bad man, you're bullying my dad. I'm gonna hit you." Seeing Bella rush over, I held back, and Stephen got the upper hand. In pain, I watched Stephen and Bella closely. I only then noticed how similar they looked. In an instant, my mind went blank. Everything felt like a dream, a painful and unbearable dream. When I woke again, I found myself in a hospital. The cold disinfectant smell lingered under my nose, my muddled brain heavy and unable to think. Jessica sat beside me, red-eyed. "Louis, you're awake." I pulled my hand away from her, my lips pale. "Where's Bella?" "I sent her home." I closed my eyes and rasped out, asking how long ago Bella happened. Jessica hesitated and said it was 5 years ago when I went overseas on a business trip. 5 years ago, Jessica had a deal abroad and went to the US. Not long after, she got pregnant. Thinking back, her behavior was indeed odd. When we were together, she treated it like a task, even telling me she didn't want kids. I love Jessica, and since I figured my older brother was around, having kids wasn't a big deal. After returning, she was unusually enthusiastic towards me. Looking back, maybe Jessica was trying to make it up to me out of guilt. It's been 2 days since I found out Bella wasn't my kid. During that time, I shut myself in my room, going through Bella's childhood photos. With a heavy heart, I chose to contact Jessica. She answered almost immediately, unlike before when she was often unreachable. "Louis, have you forgiven me?" Her voice was anxious on the other end of the line. "When can we meet up and talk?" Okay, I'll come over right away. Let's meet at home, I'll be there soon." I was about to say I was still at the office, but Jessica hurriedly hung up. By the time I wrapped up work, it was dark. As I got off the elevator, I saw Jessica crouching by the doorstep. When she saw me, her eyes lit up. "Louis, you're home. Why doesn't my key work?" Her voice was tinged with disappointment. "I forgot to tell you, I changed the locks. The house is mine, you have the other one. Louis, don't be so distant. I know I was wrong. Please forgive me, will you? Pretend I just took a little trip. I swear I won't hurt you again," she pleaded. I couldn't believe my ears and blurted out, "Jessica, we've been together 7 years. You despised me, left, and now you regret it? What do I mean to you?" Jessica looked pale, her eyes turning red. "Louis, I know I messed up. Can't you just forgive me this once?" I stayed silent. That's when Bella ran out and hugged my leg. "Daddy, are you leaving me and Mommy?" Bella's eyes were full of tears. I had to admit, knowing Bella wasn't mine didn't change how her tears tugged at my heartstrings. But I knew I couldn't let this go on forever. Jessica deliberately brought Bella to soften me up. Realizing that, I pushed Bella away without expression. You're Jessica and Steven's daughter, Bella. I'm not your dad. Perhaps the little girl couldn't understand why the dad who spoiled her for 4 years would suddenly reject her. But I had to move forward for my new life. As I prepared to leave, Jessica called out with a pale face, "Louis, are you really giving up our history so easily? We have Bella. You care about her, right? I could give you another child if you don't want Bella. Just please, Louis." I sighed. "Jessica, you've got it wrong. Loving someone can be sparked by a glance, a moment. My love for you grew over time, but disappointment grew too from you ignoring me, being cold, giving up. I've had enough. I want out. I once really loved you, could sacrifice everything. But my relentless love just burned like a moth to a flame. I never saw even a spark of love from you. Even a little would have convinced me. But I can't convince myself anymore. I'll never forget you confessing to Steven." The color drained from Jessica's face. "I'm sorry, Louis." She didn't stop me from leaving. She stood there, holding the crying Bella, watching me go. Later, I completely separated from Jessica. I heard she didn't end up with Steven either. Epilogue. I'm Jessica, married to Louis for 7 years until we split when I was 30. I was the one at fault. I let Louis down. The daughter he cherished for 4 years wasn't his. That night in the US, with Steven was thrilling. He was my first love. If things were different, we might have been married with kids by now. So when I got pregnant, a secret hope bloomed within me. But when our daughter was born, she resembled Steven so much. I was scared and filled with guilt. Louis adored our daughter, and me. It just highlighted how low I'd sunk. I didn't deserve Louis. Steven's return gave me a thrill Louis couldn't. I was lost in it. Until Louis found out the truth. I was terrified but somehow relieved. I'd lost Louis completely. 3 years after our divorce, I was diagnosed with stomach cancer. The doctor said it was due to my drinking and bad eating habits. At that moment, I couldn't help but think of Louis. Back when we were still together, he'd make gastropathy meals for me, always prepared breakfast. Without Louis, I drowned my sorrows in alcohol. Many times, I asked myself why I'd lose Louis, why I'd commit so many heartbreaking actions. I truly regretted it.